In late 2004, Sherry Berg took time from her busy college schedule to visit a spa in Raleigh, North Carolina. At the spa, Sherry underwent laser hair removal and in preparation was given a numbing cream known as laser gel. Soon, the story took a darker turn, and Sherry was killed by seizures caused by laser gel, which the FDA later found could be toxic in high doses. This young woman was killed in the prime of her life by untested use of cosmetic medication, leading many to ask, what the hell just happened? One answer is that the cream came from a compounding pharmacy. According to ABC News of January 17, 2013, compounding is the act of modifying existing medication in order to meet personalized patient needs. A compounding pharmacy is simply an institution that specializes in this. The problem is that compounding pharmacies are not regulated by the FDA, meaning individual state agencies have to regulate these companies. State regulations are often inadequate and lead to the situations that make stories like Sherry's a possibility. Today, we will come down with the problems in the compounding regulations, come down with the side effects of these poor regulations, before prescribing a cure for the solutions of the compounding regulation of compounding. The FDA monitors medicinal manufacturers to make sure proper procedures are being followed and safe products are being sold. Unfortunately, as NPR of November 11, 2012 tells us, in the 90s, the Supreme Court struck down the set of laws providing oversight of compounding pharmacies to the FDA, specifically rejecting the part of the law that prohibited these companies from advertising across state lines. So, compounding pharmacies are not regulated by the FDA, meaning individual states have to regulate them. This is a major problem because these state agencies normally don't have the regulations that the FDA would. If a compounding pharmacy obviously crosses the line from pharmacy to drug manufacturer, or if it blatantly breaks health codes, the FDA can take action. But as long as it meets whatever requirements the state has set, it can skirt the line between state and federal authority without ever giving the FDA legal rights to take action. The FDA needs to clear up its relation to compounding pharmacies before any improvements can be made. Compounding pharmacies suffer from a bit of an identity crisis, so it's no surprise that the laws meant to regulate them are inadequate. The problem is that because these institutions are regulated by the states rather than the FDA, state laws are often inadequate, meaning safe regulations are not being followed. Even when a state has strict enough policies, though, there's often a problem of resources. As USA Today reports on January 7, 2013, because they can advertise across state lines, some compounding pharmacies have definitely begun acting more like manufacturers than pharmacies. And some of these pharmacies have expanded so much that they sell dozens of different products across dozens of states. Asking a single state agency to tame such a business is a little like asking a mouse to tame a lion. These state agencies simply don't have the resources that the FDA does, resources built over decades of monitoring the medicinal process. State regulation of compounding pharmacies is simply less effective and less safe than monitoring by the FDA. Now that we understand the poor state of compounding regulations, let's take a look at the negative effects these regulations are having. Public health risks, and a risk to the future medical industry. If my intro didn't tip you off, one of the most obvious risks of unregulated compounding pharmacies is the public health factor. In fact, at the end of last month, NECC, or New England Compounding Center, was shut down after distributing steroid injections tainted with a deadly strain of fungal meningitis. Before production could be stopped, 44 people died. Hundreds more contracted meningitis, and thousands of patients were put at risk across dozens of states. NECC was known to cut corners in some places, but current regulations were too lax to catch the problem before it erupted. And unfortunately, such less extreme cases of low-quality medication seem to be endemic through the industry. According to the Chicago Tribune on October 16th, The FDA conducted a study of compounding pharmacy drugs in 2001 and found that 10 out of 29 tested samples had problems with the quality, meaning they were selling a drug that was different than what they claimed. Compare this to samples from drug manufacturers who were overseen by the FDA, and only 3 out of 3,000 samples had quality problems. Unregulated compounding pharmacies lead to lower quality medication, and in the worst cases, lives are put at risk. A less immediate impact of unregulated compounding pharmacies is the danger to the future of the medical industry. According to Daily Health News on January 17, 2013, the dominant trend in future medicine is personalized medication, or providing specified treatments to your personalized needs. If this sounds familiar, that's because that's basically what compounding is. In the future, personalized medication will mean more people will go to compounding pharmacies, whereas today you might get a liquid medication turned into pill form. In the future, we all might go to our local compounder to get personalized hormone treatments for our specific genomes. While this specific trend is a little in the future, it is important to note that this is the most important trend in medication. And if compounding regulations are not advanced to the stage they need to be, more dangerous medications could be distributed by people like NECC, or people could be scared away from this new and needed form of medication. The poor state of regulation means that medicine cannot advance. Now that we see the poor state that the entire compounding industry is in, we can see that there are fortunately 2 simple solutions. 1, simple regulation reform, and 2, accreditation. The citizens of the United States benefit tremendously from the FDA's monitoring of medicinal manufacturers, and similar oversight of compounding pharmacies would be similarly beneficial. A prudent reform would be to reintroduce the legislation from the 90s and just toss out the part about overstates advertisements. This would bring all compounding pharmacies under the uniform and safe control of the FDA. The FDA could clear up fuzzy lines and make sure all regulations were followed, because it would no longer have to argue jurisdiction with firms or states. Additionally, states can do their part. The Boston Globe reports on January 17th that after the NECC outbreak, Massachusetts reformed its compounding legislation. In addition to introducing steeper fines and more frequent surprise inspections, they took the important step of monitoring the production and sales of every compounding pharmacy. If a pharmacy gets too big, they just report them to the FDA and hand over inspection duties. If all states took such measures, the FDA could expand and strengthen its oversight without even needing a national reform. Simple reforms to the regulations that control compounding pharmacies could do much to alleviate the situation. But on a more personal level, we as consumers must take control of the medication we are consuming. The Compounding Pharmacy Accreditation Board is an organization designed to create higher safety in compounding by accrediting those who meet industry standards. Unfortunately, as the Washington Post reports on January 17th, very few compounding pharmacies have this accreditation, and very few seek it out. The main reason seems to be that customers just don't ask for it. While you or I rarely deal directly with compounding pharmacies today, the best solution for us is to just ask our doctors where all our medication comes from. Doctors are ahead of the trend and often prescribe compounded medication to meet your personal needs without mentioning that it is compounded, but when asked, should be able to provide a substitute or confirm accreditation. In fact, we should do this of all medication we take, whether from a cosmetic spa or a medical doctor. After all, this is our bodies and our health. Trusting who makes what we put in it is a must. Accreditation should be the rule, not the exception, but only by taking an active interest in our own health can proper regulation be made the norm. Shiri should not have died on her trip to that spa. Toxic medication should not have made it under the radar. And while nothing can be done for Shiri or for the victims of NECC, we can at least learn from their misfortune. Compounding has outgrown its old regulations and needs new ones that more accurately define the modern compounding industry. Fortunately, Simple reforms to the regulation and customers who insist on proper care should be enough to alleviate many of the problems. Compounding pharmacies have been tainted by improper regulation, but their state at the bottom rung of the health industry cannot last.